Cool. All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to FormIt Friday. After we had a nice hiatus during the summer month of August, we are back in September, and we have a special guest with us today. Tom and Tobias are your hosts, as always, and Jarod Schultz from initial.aec is going to be joining us. As you probably saw in the invitation, Jarod gave a standing room only class at RTC, one of the last classes of the conference, but was still overflowing due to the awesome content and subject matter, which is, of course, FormIt 360, the application.
Yeah, I was selling the class.
Yep.
Everybody wanted to know how to take things from FormIt into Revit after the fact. So.
Yeah, they came up a couple of times in the previous classes, and so you were there to deliver the story, and that's what you'll cover today, basically.
Yep, exactly.
Bridging the design gap, literally, between conceptual design applications and your design documentation application. So if you've got questions along the way, feel free to type those into the go-to chat window or go-to question window, and Tom and I will be answering those as we go along. Jarod will just be rolling here with the presentation. You can see his Twitter handle there and also his website. Just a quick plug for Jarod and Initial. They've got a bunch of pretty sweet Revit plugins that they've developed independent of anything with FormIt. So I'd recommend checking those out sometime. But in the meantime, Jarod, take it away, my friend.
All right, thanks. Glad to be on this morning. Hope everybody's having a good Friday and can't wait for the weekend. So Beer 30 is coming soon. So, so the whole point of this presentation is I want to cut to the chase and talk about how you can use FormIt, bring it into Revit, and ultimately the big thing is obviously someone's going to go back into FormIt and update their design, and then how do we take those bits and pieces or chunks of that model and bring it back into Revit so we can update that. So that way that model that's in, let's say, first early design development can keep pushing forward so we can kind of blend this scenario. Along the way, I'm going to also bring up how you can bring in 3D terrain into FormIt, because that's always been a big question from a lot of our clients. Right now it's just kind of a flat image down on the ground, but I'll show you a little trick and get around that. And the big thing is as we're going through this, it's all really about the plugin. If you haven't downloaded this and installed this into Revit, this is really, to be honest, one of the biggest things. I think I call it the magic converter is what I call it, because when this thing came out, this really solved quite a lot of things for myself, because content was one big one. This thing solves that issue very much, to say the least. If you haven't downloaded this is currently just Revit 2015, but they'll have a 16 version here fairly quick, I think.
In a couple of weeks. And I do want to jump in right now and mention, if you already have it installed, please go get the updated one.
Yes.
We just updated that earlier this week, and there's 3 or 4 bug fixes in it. Especially some bug fixes that support what Jarod's going to talk about.
Yes.
So if you have it, get the new one.
Yes, it fixed the Jarod bug. So, so there was something. It's dealing with some families, and there was some little naming issues there. There's a easy enough way to get around it with save as, but we don't have to go through some extra picks and clicks as we do that. So definitely go up there and get this. It's relatively new. It's what, 3 days old, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
4 days old.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely grab that, download that, and get that installed. That'll plug itself into Revit 2015 and hopefully 16 here coming quick. So the big thing is it adds the additional plugin under the Add-in tab, and this is really where all the magic is, and this is where I'll be using this quite a lot today. So you got RFA to FormIt, so you can. This is a wonderful tool. You can take a lot of your families and bring it up into FormIt, so you can populate your entourage to your building to make it look a little bit more realistic. The bonus is that you can take things from Sketchup and being like 3D Warehouse and bring a lot of that stuff in it. And then the other thing is anything that you've done in FormIt, which is cloud-based, or I'm going to be basically using the web version of it. There's a Apple version of it. There's an Android version of it, but I'll be using the web version today. The big thing is all of those hook into your Autodesk 360 account. So if you don't have one of those, you got to get signed up on that. That's absolutely free. But when you save that FormIt file, it might take a minute, might take 3 minutes. It takes at least a minute for the RBT file, for the FormIt file to be converted. If you're impatient like me, there's a lovely download button that you can use, and I'll show you that. So if you're impatient like me, you can just jump to that. The big thing too, when you're working with SketchUp, one of the things is it's got to do a watertight, and there is a nice little tool built into FormIt to show you that. So this is great not only for SketchUp but your own models, because I've been early when I started working with FormIt and working with Tobias. I was definitely breaking a few things, to say the least, but and it was just because of how I was deleting things and how I was putting certain edges onto the surfaces. So it's kind of cool where you can turn that on and kind of check yourself, and especially the display backface. So you kind of turn these on, and it'll help you. I can't remember the coloring system that purple. Yeah, purple. So some of you, I'm sure, like purple, so that'll be perfect for that. So definitely go up there, download that. Again, if I just jump over here to, and one other thing I want to mention too, browsers, Chrome, Safari, Firefox,
not IE.
Not IE. IE, no. But though the new version of Explorer does work, right?
Yeah, Edge works pretty well.
So just a heads up on that. So coming back to Autodesk FormIt, if you go to their website, you just pick on the download page. This is where you can grab the converter and download it. They kind of give you a hindsight of what's been updated and fixed and so on, but easy enough to go about doing that, to say the least. All right, so that's really the main thing that really makes everything I'm going to show for the rest of the presentation work. So the big thing that when you're working with FormIt is you got to get into this mindset of groups. So as you're starting to work with your design, if you're starting to deal with let's say a commercial grade type building, doesn't have to be commercial, it could be residential, but the idea is that if there's parts and pieces to that design, what you need to do is you need to group that, so that way as you're starting to extrude and sweep and loft, those are not automatically being joined to the other geometry that you've already built before. And that's probably one of the biggest things you got to understand. The other thing that you have to understand too is that anything that you create as a group ultimately turns into a family once it gets into Revit, and that's a major little trick. One of the cool things that a lot of people were registering when I was at RTC this year was placeholders. A lot of them really said, oh man, so I can just like build a bunch of little boxes or cones or whatever, and name that a certain name, and then make that like, I don't know, furniture category or whatever. And then once it got into Revit, you could very easily grab all that and swap it out right to the family that it needs to be. Yep. So a lot of people were really digging that idea. So that was really cool to see people starting to think, you know, what can I do with these groups? So we'll walk through about how to do them, how to work with them. They're easy. It's pretty much, it's called right-click. So, and talking about that too, when you're working with FormIt, there's a lot of right-click menus along with it. The other thing I want to mention on this screenshot here is, which is really cool, is they started really adding pretty much a shortcut key for just about every tool that's in there. So if you really, you know, for a lot of us that use Revit, we like to use macro keys. So just a heads up, you have macro keys within FormIt. Now we can't customize it just yet, but that's soon to be on the.
It's coming. We've got some other pretty high priority things we're getting ready for the next release.
So this is one of my great phrases I use at RTC, is that if you haven't used FormIt in the last 6 months, it's, well, that was older than dirt. Yep. So you got to constantly kind of keep a watch on what's going on with FormIt, because literally it seems like every 2 months there's something happening with it. So keep this in mind as you're going with it. The other thing I want to mention real quick is on my notes with the groups. The groups individually can handle levels on their own and also materials on their own. So that's something else that's kind of cool with nested groups. So you might want to kind of check that out too, which is cool, because that could be helpful at times. So when you're building a group, the big thing is look over in the properties window, and over there you can basically, you have to give it a name. Once you give it a name, then the category drop down becomes active. So that's kind of a little bit of a gotcha. You got to give it a name before you can do that. So just a heads up. But the beauty is that once you've done that, when you bring it into Revit, then look at the type selector. Once you bring it over to Revit, you'll start seeing some of the magic of how they're being families, and how, because it's using families in the type selector, you can start swapping stuff out. So again, just kind of going back through the converter, this just kind of goes through the steps of the process of doing this. We'll do this live here. And then I'll talk about how you can attach some building components to it. So let's jump into FormIt at this point and kind of get some ideas of working with this. So first and foremost, let me just give you a quick overview of groups. So if we come in and just grab this cube, and let's just make it at least look unique. And then the other thing is, if you want to select it, you can do selection windows. You can just double click on it. It'll highlight the whole entire object. There's even a little lasso tool if you want to do the lasso thing and do squigglies on your screen. So that's kind of cool too. So just a heads up, if you right click, once it's highlighted, come on, then you can build yourself a group. And then this is with the group. If I go ahead and double click, this is kind of gets you the idea that you're in an edit mode, which is kind of cool. And then over here in the properties is then where you'll give it a name, and I'll just put my name in there. And then this is then where you can come in and add whatever category you want.
And by default, we have it set for mass. So if you don't do any editing, then it'll turn into a mass in Revit automatically. But now you have other options.
Yep. So pretty cool. So if I wanted this to be furniture, then now it's a furniture category. Now the beauty of this is if I come in here and I'm just doing Control-C and Control-V on the screen here real quick, but if I come in and I just drop a bunch of these things in here, the beauty is that if I go back and I do something to this, you can see how they're all updating together at the same time. So that's the thing that's kind of cool about this is as you make changes. So if you got something that is definitely redundant happening on the building, which happens, definitely this is where you start using your groups. Okay, so that kind of just gives you a quick overview of kind of getting started with the groups and giving you the idea of it. Now, building upon this, let me just go open one of my files. So I try to use these predefined files so we don't have to sit here and watch me build stuff all day.
So mesmerizing, like Twitch.
So the thing here is, if I double click, the thing to take note is this has nested groups in it. So that's the thing is that it, I don't know if there's really a limitation on how far you can go down the tree. So, as for detail, do this as much as whatever you need. Again, it's just a double click to get inside your groups. And then at that point, you can manipulate and change whatever you want to do to the design. One thing I want to mention real quick, since I'm in here doing this, don't forget that you can, when you're extruding items or even drawing items, especially even levels, don't forget that Revit or FormIt has the ability to pick up on those edges, which is really nice. So you don't have to sit there and go, oh yeah, I got to make it 2 feet 11 7/8. All right, that's just brain damage is what that is. So, and the other thing I want to mention real quick is the tab key. So whenever you are doing anything in FormIt and it gives you this, I call it dynamic dimension, understand that you can use the tab key. I like to do this a lot. I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe I think it's because I'm brainwashed with Revit.
I know.
Right? Tab your life away is what I call it.
When in doubt, hit tab.
When in doubt, right click, and when in doubt, hit tab. Yeah. So that's just a couple of side notes. This is further in my presentation, but I just want to make sure I try to capture as much as I can as I go through. Again, now when you're done with this, they got this little toolbar over here, but honestly, you can just double click out in the middle of nowhere and you just get you out. So again, trying to help people speed themselves up a little bit. So, okay, Jarod, I come in here and I build this great design. Hopefully it's better than this one. I stole this from Tobias. But this thing, when you save, then that goes and registers in the cloud. It might take a minute or more for it to catch up with what you're doing and then download or give you the ability to grab the RVT file. For me, I'm being impatient, and I just say, forget that, I'm just going to come over here and grab this tool. So here, what you can do is just pick on this, and then you can place then, and this is something everybody has to get used to, is the new file format. So you got AXM. Okay, and then you can place that wherever the heck you want to place that. So I have this little folder out here for FormIt and files, and this is where I can come in and I can download my file, and off I go. Very small files, to say the least. Okay. Now, once that's downloaded, then what we can do is we can jump into Revit.
2015.
2015.
Yeah.
Start up your favorite Revit template. This is just my personal preference. I like to jump into a 3D view. You can pretty much do it in any view. But then you go to the add-ins, and then this is where you grab the magic tool to say, hey, I want to convert a FormIt file to Revit. And then this is where you go off and grab your file.
It's opening up those different families, and in this case you've got two. The one family and then the nested family. It opens both creates that geometry for you in Revit.
And then one of these days, these messages will not be here. So just ignore those messages. There's no big deal. Just okay, okay, okay. And there we go. And what's really cool is when we look at this, this is, notice the category over here is mass. Notice the magic up here. It's called Edit Family. This is where our lead in for the next. Mm-hmm. So it's super easy to take something out of FormIt and bring it into Revit and then do whatever you need to do. Now the big thing with this is then with the massing and site is then this is, and I don't know how many people on board today have worked with these tools, but then this is what's kind of cool is then you can come in and grab, like, let's say the wall tool. You can come over, you can choose whatever magic wall type that you want to use. We all know how to build walls if you've worked with Revit. And then the big thing is then you can come in and start picking on those surfaces, which then matches to that, which is really cool. And you can go on and on with this thing. But that's the idea of then taking something that you've done in FormIt at whatever detail level, and then bring it in and start building forward, so hence we're not throwing anything away. But what people have brought up to me is, well, that's cool, Jarod, but what happens if, you know,
the design changes?
Yeah, the design changes, or I woke up Saturday morning and I started geeking out on FormIt and I decided to make some changes. So the idea is then, of course that's going to happen, right? So here, got basically the same model, but someone decided, hey, let's make these wider. Okay, that's fine. And from here then, what we can do is we can basically do the same process. We just come in here and say, hey, look, let's take that new design. We'll bring it down to wherever folder we want to place that in. And so here's our little update. And then what you do is back in Revit, and we'll see in a future if this workflow gets a little bit smoother, but right now what we basically do is we come in here and I create what I call a dummy project. So you grab your favorite Revit template, whatever it is, and we basically go through the same process as what we did before. So you come in, you grab your add-ins, you load in this new update that you did. So it's going to go through the process. It's going to give you those same little messages. But now we're seeing the new changes, right? So we'll just stay in line so we can see it. Now, the thing here is then if I pick on this, this is a family. And what I can do then is I can go into Edit Family. And then what the beauty is I can come back and load this back into my other project. Now, once you do that, since it basically picks up the same name, right? Nothing's changed. It was the same group name that you had it last time. And I guess that is a key, right? Yeah, you got to keep the same group names. Now, if someone's changed that, then that's still not a loss. When you open up that family to edit, what you can simply do is do a save as, give the family a different name or the name that it was originally, and then load that into the project and it'll update.
Yeah.
So yeah,
easy enough.
We can all handle that. And then we overwrite this existing version, and then the magic happens. Now, your building elements, you know, on the Revit side, aren't seeing what's going on with this. So you might have to pick on those building elements. You might have to say, hey, update the face, and then it updates to where it needs to be. So just a heads up. If I remember right, you can hold down the Control key and grab multiple if you needed to, or you can do your magic right-click, select all instances in the view, or the entire project if you wanted. Either way, but definitely works.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
Unless there's some gigantic change, yeah, you might have to just physically take the building elements and move them to where they are. Like one of the currents that we did this week, there was a big notch that we did on a building.
Yeah, for adding like exactly, taking out some space or taking out a big wall for an atrium or something like that.
So we had to basically just grab the walls and just move it over to where it was.
But even in that case, you're just updating one or two elements. You're not having to restart the whole process. So I really like this workflow for just picking a discrete thing that needs to change and update, and then swapping that back into your base project in Revit.
Yeah. So easy enough. If you worked with the building element tools, then all of that comes across just like it's always been. And then going through the process, then I do want to mention that over in the project browser, I should have showed this, but over in the family category over there, you can see the instances that came in from FormIt. Obviously, you can also just pick on them. If they happen to be nested, you can tab through it and pick on it and grab it there. So I try to talk about as much as you can about trying to find what the name is or whatever, but it's easy enough to figure out. And then the process is just coming up with that dummy project and loading that in, and then going edit family and load it into the other project in your golden. So pretty cool, all right? Now content, you know, this is the big thing too that I want to mention with the Magic Converter is taking, you know, the big thing here is your RFA files. So all of that content, you know, a lot of us have spent some time building some families, to say the least. So what's really cool is you can take those along for the ride and bring those up into FormIt. So definitely take advantage of that. We talked about the placeholder, about replacing stuff too, which is really cool. So a lot of people are catching in on that. The other thing that's really cool too is that you know, a lot of, you know, some clients are really starting to grab FormIt, working with it, and then they might be in a certain city which has a certain building in there that everybody knows, 3D warehouse. Someone probably built that. Download that, and then you can use the plug-in with Revit to convert that SketchUp file over into a FormIt file. So just to give you an example of this, let me come back and first of all, let me just show you. This particular model. So this model is something that came from 3D Warehouse. And every time I get into SketchUp, I'm trying to hold down the Shift key to orbit, which is not the way. So here it is within SketchUp. But if I come back over to Revit, what I simply did was I went to the add-ins, and I used this tool. And so basically, you download it to whatever favorite folder, tell basically the plugin, hey, go look over there. You can dump it into the same folder. It doesn't have to be a different folder, so you can basically, you know, have side-by-side comparison if you want. The other thing that's cool though is you can check mark this, so it just automatically loads into your A360 account, which is cool too. So that's again a simple enough process. Might take a little bit to convert. Depends on how many SketchUp files you have in that folder. If you got 50 of them and they're, I don't know, 2 megs a pop, it might take 20 minutes maybe to get through some of that content.
But the nice thing is you just specify the folder and it'll go through everything that's in that folder.
Yeah. So you don't have to do it one at a time, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So once that's done, once it's converted to a FormIt file, then the magic is then if I come back to FormIt and I grab open, so we can kind of do a side-by-side comparison here. This is what then the model looked like once it got converted, which pretty much everything came across. So even the lady came across. So that's pretty slick. Now, I think the other thing that people don't realize, though, is the conversion. This is not a static model. This isn't like a, oh, what am I thinking? Just, I don't know, a static model.
Yeah.
So
it really gets translated into FormIt stuff. So that is a face with a material on it. And even over in the material library, like you'll be able to see these materials come across. So it's might as well be a native translation. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good.
So check that out. I think that opens up a whole realm of entourage that we don't have to sit there and redevelop, which is really, really nice.
Yeah, the SketchUp Warehouse has a lot of stuff in it.
Yeah. So take advantage of that. I think this is a big piece for a lot of us looking at wanting to spruce up their models with additional content, and we got a truckload, to say the least. So it's awesome that we don't have to sit there and try to recreate stuff. We don't need to do that, which is great.
Bicycles, for instance. You want to build a bicycle in FormIt? I don't want to build a bicycle. I don't have to.
No, or how about a Camaro, or I don't have to do any of that stuff. So that's pretty cool. So take advantage of that. I just kind of go through the process of doing this, but overall it's pretty simple. Just use those plug-in tools to get you through there. The other thing that I want to mention too, which is something I get asked, I think, quite a lot with FormIt, is FormIt has a tool built into it that you can drive a location. And so let me just start a new sketch real quick. So over here they have a tool that says click to set location, and then you pick on it, and basically gives you a big gigantic map, and you plug in whatever address we want. Hey, we're going to go to France today.
All right.
All right, and then from here,
those weather stations are pretty cool too. Those get overlooked a lot, but if you click on one of those, you'll get weather information about and wind information about that location. So average temperature, highs, lows, and then if you click on those other guys, you'll get where the wind's coming from.
Cool.
That's been in there for a while, but I always like to mention it because it's pretty good information when you're getting started with a project.
That's awesome.
Cool. So back to you, Jarod.
No, I'm happy you brought that up. But the thing is with this is, if I find, that's where I want, I bring this in. And then, of course, you can tweak it and change it. You can zoom and pan and say, hey, I really want to just do that right there and finish it, which is cool. But we kind of saw that definitely looked a little hilly. So
it might have some 3D topography.
So, all right. So we're not going to get that. Well, let's fix that. So coming back to here. So what I've discovered, and let's see here, let me slow down and kind of come back to this. So what I discovered, or I shouldn't say that, this is Tobias. I basically stealing an idea that Tobias brought up to me, and I'm like, hey, I need to show that. I think you've showed it once before in one of your other formats.
It was for me. It was a Saturday sitting there with a friend and kind of thinking, hey, we've got the SketchUp Converter. I wonder if that topography would translate. And
wonder.
Sure enough.
So the thing is on this, you go into SketchUp, and in my case, I'm going to bring in a place up here on Lookout Mountain, and which is definitely a little hilly, and I'm going to bring this over into FormIt. So again, jumping back here to SketchUp and using their tools. So I come in here to this geolocation tool, say, hey, I want to add a location. Come on. So I happen to plug in the address earlier today, but there's the address. It's up on Lookout Mountain. And so, I want to bring in this region. So, that looks good because it's near the road. Give it a few seconds. I don't know why it does that. Jumps over there for a second. And then, okay, well, looks no different than FormIt, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
But the key here is you come back up here and you say, hey, I want to show the terrain. And now we can see that Lookout Mountain here and next to Golden is not flat. So, all right, so which is great because if I'm drawing some sort of high-end custom home up there, this would be good to know as I start working with my shapes and forms and my format. So now all you have to do at this point is basically save the file, place it wherever you want to place it. So earlier I did basically this and save the SketchUp file. Okay. Again, then what we're doing is then we're coming over into Revit and we're grabbing the add-in and we're saying, hey, we'll take that file that I just did, convert it to FormIt. Is all I'm doing. And then once I've done that, I can then load that up into FormIt.
And just a quick peek behind the curtain comment here for those who are paying attention and attending and watching on YouTube. We're currently developing a way to convert from SketchUp without using Revit at all. Just a simple drag and drop from your hard drive into your FormIt window. And we'll have a server running in the background that'll do that conversion for you. So that'll be coming online in the future. We're about halfway through that project. So stay tuned for that. But in the future, you won't necessarily have to use Revit in order to convert it.
Cool. And then once you've uploaded it, then I can grab that particular file. Now what's interesting is when you open it up, you'll actually see both flavors, which is actually kind of nice because maybe you do need or want both of them. You actually have that. But if you didn't want the flat one, you can just simply delete it out. This is kind of down inside the area where the FormIt's working, so I can just grab this and say I want to raise this up here a little bit. So the only thing is we got the little dude down here. So
he came too.
He came along for the ride. He didn't want to be by himself.
Yep.
So we can go in there and delete the little dude. So in here now we got something that we can definitely start working with.
And that is grouped. So that's kind of nice.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully that helps a lot of people, especially when you need to deal with some 3D terrain. That'll help you with your FormIt models and getting some ideas about what's working, what's not working as you're laying out your site. So kind of cool. At least I think it's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty good for getting started.
Yeah.
Like, especially with this kind of terrain. I mean, it's just not going to be a flat project, and you kind of need to know that from the early stages.
Now, everybody and their brother asks, well, when you then download that as an RVT, what kind of magic do we have there? Well, I don't know if it's a surface.
Yep.
So, and the map, the image is gone. So that's just one of those things right now. It's a limitation, basically. But we'll see what the future beholds. But just a heads up, that's more on the Revit side.
And you're converting into a mass family there, right?
Yeah, if you want, let's see here. I think I got that.
I think I tested this out too, and when I set it as a sites family, like set the category and format as sites, and then converted it, it didn't work. But when I set it as a mass family and converted it to Revit, it did work. So the mass geometry creation tools in Revit are a little bit more robust than the site family creation tools.
Yeah.
Is that mass?
That is a mass.
Yeah, so this is what you'll get when you convert to Revit. Yeah, the satellite image won't be overlaid onto it, but at least it's still accurate.
Yeah, so we got something at least. Something's better than nothing. So now talking about some of the modeling techniques, I just want to mention that there's a couple of new tools in here that I just want to make sure everybody is aware of as we go through it. And the first one I want to bring up here is going to be looking at the sweep tool. So I want to bring up this particular file. There's a couple of things that I want to bring up with the sweep tool that sometimes people don't know about, and I think I'll also throw in one extra little tool into the loop just to show some people some other things about this particular file. And these tools. So let me open that up. And sweeps. So a couple things. This has been a big wish list for a lot of people, and I just want to make sure everybody understands that it's under this little lightning bolt thing here. And this is where you got your Boolean operations, where you can add, subtract. But then this is where you'll find your sweep. You have this interesting one, which I haven't seen before with it. Any other modeler, this cover thing.
Cover?
Yeah.
It can be really useful. One thing I use it for a lot is the heal up geometry that I've deleted a face or something like that. I can just choose usually one edge and then use the cover tool and it'll just clean it up for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't use it as much as I use sweep, that's for sure.
Yeah. And then we'll also talk about Loft. So I have another model that will walk through that. So easy enough to do. You grab the sweep tool, there's a little toolbar up here. Basically, you pick a profile. It doesn't have to be a profile, by the way. It can be just an edge. But you pick on that, and then you pick on whatever path system that you have. So we'll just kind of grab the circle, and then you kind of come over here and hit the little check mark. And so off we go. So. And then let's try this again on this guy. So again, it's just picking the profile and then whatever edge you want to do. And then you can, so obviously you can build some pretty complex shapes fairly quick. And same thing here. Now this one has multiple line work, so I just got to kind of come through and click basically the path system.
Okay, so
one thing I haven't done is
go ahead and do that.
Can you double click that?
Do it this way just to make sure everybody sees what will happen. So yeah, it's three-dimensional. I guess it's kind of like Revit in that way. It's just a lot harder to sketch out that kind of path in Revit. It's really easy to sketch that path in FormIt. So yeah, go back and let's look at a couple different ways to do that. Sweep, pick that guy, and now it automatically puts you into the path selection. Mm-hmm. So what your theory was try to double-click?
Yeah, can I double-click that? Boom. See?
And now hit the checkbox or enter, and
fail.
Didn't work. So do Control-Z. Here's what I know will work. So go into Sweep, pick the profile, and now hover over one of those edges and hit Tab.
The magic tab key.
The magic tab key.
The magic tab key.
And select all connected. So just like in Revit. But that's a good point about double-click. We should take a look at that because probably what it did was it selected the original profile that it was connected to, and that probably confused it.
Yeah. Cool. Another thing that I want to mention up now. This is another little trick too. With the sweep, so thinking like that process that we just got done. So actually I want to go all the way around this thing. So here I am again, I'm picking edge, picking edge, picking edge, picking edge, and I hit my check mark and nothing happens. So I'm like, what the, why is that not working? So the interesting thing is, let me hit escape here. Let's try this again. So I pick my profile, but here's the thing. If I pick the surface, right, now magic happens. So I just want to throw that one out there, that this one, I was thinking one way, didn't work that way.
It should work, though, if you picked all those paths. It didn't work at all?
So this is my famous work.
Yeah, here's a good file for us to file to the team.
Yeah, so we need to bring that up. But so just think out of the box, I guess, with that one is pick the surface, since all 4 edges are on the surface.
Yeah, exactly. And if you had an 8-sided thing, just picking the face is a shortcut, basically, to picking all the edges on that face. Yeah.
So just a heads up. And then this is cool, too. So here we're thinking add. In this methodology, we're thinking subtract. So we grab the sweep, we pick on this. Again, I'm going to use my little trick. So I pick on the surface, and it wraps it all the way around, which is kind of cool. So think out of the box, I think, with the sweep tool is it's not only, I think most of us are thinking addition, addition, addition,
right,
but because thinking like Revit, if you want, you have to always do void to subtract. So here the tool just magically does both. So we got to think about that. And then one added little thing that I want to bring up, which I think is really cool for like window frames. If I pick on this surface and I right click, there's a really cool offset tool. I love this thing. So instead of sitting there trying to draw lines, thinking, an offset going all the way around that, this is kind of cool. And then of course I can use my magic tab key and say, hey, I want that to be 1 foot all the way around. So now that surface has been cut, so I can grab that, I can raise that up if I want, or sink it down. So just a heads up. So that's another one that I think is kind of cool that some people don't realize.
Do Control-Z real fast, and we spent some time with the selection pattern too. So if you do that again, select that face and offset it, and if you do it 1 foot again, and now if you just hit escape once, now you're in the selection tool. So you can actually, like, say you were doing a parapet. Now you can, you're in the drag face tool. So you can just start dragging that piece up. So we kind of kept that in selection on purpose, with the thinking that you'd want to do something with it. And the opposite,
cool.
If you can clear your selection and then grab the inside face if you wanted.
Sure,
but
that's cool.
Yeah.
Save a step.
Yep.
All right. So hopefully that kind of opens some eyeballs about what's going on with the new sweep tool and some of the options.
Yeah, let me jump in here with some of the comments that we've gotten as you've been going along. So one thing I want to point out was a cool workflow that I hadn't heard of before was grabbing the Google image from either FormIt or from SketchUp 2, and then applying that in Revit as like a material by face or something like that. That just because the Google image doesn't come across in the Revit FormIt to Revit translation, that doesn't mean that you can't still get an image into Revit. It only works in realistic mode, right? When you're doing
realistic or rendering,
because it's textured, but you can still get that terrain image over there. So that's a great suggestion. Cool. And then a couple more questions. Somebody was asking about a beam form and being able to extrude a beam form, and I think that you can do that with the spline tool. As long as you connect the spline tool back around, you should be able to extrude that without any seams or edges going along with that. So that's kind of a trick there, and that's under the drawing tools. And it's the third option. Yeah, that one is to draw a spline. So that should work for that. And if it doesn't, then let us know. I'm trying to think if there were other comments along the way, but I guess that's pretty good for now. And we'll get to a couple of the other questions that are coming in. Mike has commented that the window tool, the offset tool, is especially useful for windows, making a quick window frame and then pushing it in and applying material onto that face that's on the inside. You can make that a transparent face.
And that reminded me something. The other thing, talking about windows or curtain systems. So the other thing I want to mention too is if you just lay out an area, and then if you don't physically do anything with this will come across into Revit, and you can actually assign a curtain wall system to that. Yeah. So that's the other thing I want to mention too is that, so just working on these surfaces, and basically what we're doing is slicing that surface. Once that gets into Revit, this actually can be a different wall type, or this could be a different wall type up there, and then this could be a curtain wall system, let's say. So I want to mention that too, which is cool.
Yeah, and that gets to the whole workflow thing, and that comes up a lot when talking about FormIt with people. Is you could stop right there with your design, or you could continue to add more detail about what a window is. So it's kind of up to you how much detail you want to do. But when you go to Revit now, you can just apply a unique wall by face or curtain system by face onto that face that you defined in FormIt.
Yeah.
And I haven't
even roof systems.
Roof system. What I want to do for another example is to start to sketch out in there your fenestration pattern, like your curtain wall mullion pattern.
Sure.
But not actually put any mullions on it, just the lines.
Sure.
And then when you go to Revit, you can do just the curtain system. It doesn't even have to be a curtain system. It can just be a curtain panel for each of those, and then you can apply curtain wall mullions onto each of those edges.
Yeah, so that would be like this model here that I did. Be similar to the concept or idea of what I did here to kind of break up the surfaces. So if I break those up as individual surfaces, I could have those as individual curtain systems because maybe they have different spacings to them or who knows what.
Yeah, I mean the curtain system tool is really good if you have a really regular repeating pattern. But if you wanted to do something unique, like an entry curtain wall or a special curtain wall on this facade versus that facade, you can kind of save. And if you want to get something more specific looking in FormIt, then you could still do that and then create it easily in Revit. So anyway, a future webinar.
Where's my loft there? Yeah. All right, we'll have to boogie through this real quick. All right, so the loft command, again, it's just a series of profiles that we have to draw. The other thing that's really cool about this is it can be surface to surface. So I'll show that. Well, let's just show that right now. So if we come in here and we grab our Loft tool, so notice I'm picking this surface here. I rotate this around, pick this surface here. Say, hey, I'm done with that. I hit the check mark. So that's kind of cool. So if you just need to bring in some sort of model in between two surfaces, that's kind of cool. You don't have to sit there and obviously, if there was a certain path you want to do, you can do that and do it as a sweep instead. But building on some of this, again, it's just picking the individual profiles and then saying, hey, I want a solid form from that.
Nice.
And then picking these little guys. Quick, fast, easy.
Yeah, and the trick with this is you do need to do it in the order that you want the tool to do it.
So real quick, let's just say we want to build some sort of roof system on top of this that's built of arcs, let's say. So one thing I want to mention here is this is relatively new. This is what, a month old maybe?
Yeah.
So this is, I call it the UCS system. So I pick on this thing. I get to place it where I want. I want to take this edge and make sure that it's going straight up in the air. Because ultimately what I'm doing, once I pick out in the middle of nowhere, it'll accept that. What I'm doing is I'm changing the work plane is what I'm doing. The beauty of this, too, is when I go back and I use my draw tools, it's only snapping onto the surface. So even though it might look like I'm snapping, cool stuff about this. So if I come in here and I draw a little arc there, if you right-click, you can reset for that. Come back in here, do this again. Let's say we want to snap here, get this up into the ground, up to the top. Say this is looking like so. And then last but not least, I'll throw something back here and do another little quick arc. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this up is so on the Loft tool, two of these are acting like what I call a profile.
Gotcha.
And this one's not. This one doesn't have a surface on it. So the little trick or the little nuance I discovered with the Loft tool is that when you have something like this, you have got to start using your little arrow key is what I've noticed. Mm-hmm. So if I come in here and I pick this edge, I can't do like what I did before. If I just go right in the row and I say, hey, let's finish that, nothing happens. Mm-hmm. So just a heads up on that. So this is a little quirk. So I pick this edge, and then I got to go, hey, next, and then pick that edge, next, and then pick this edge, and then hit my little check mark. Now I got the solid form that I want. So just a heads up on that. It's just one of those little nuances I ran into. It's easy enough to get around, but it might throw everybody a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure which keyboard shortcut. I think the N key, like for next, will speed that up a little bit. But yeah, I think you're exactly right. If you give FormIt a complete loop, like a closed loop, then it's going to assume that's what you're done. Like you're obviously not going to add to that selection. But if you don't give it a closed loop, then you need to tell it that this is the profile I want to use. Now go to the next one. And yeah, and back to your early example, that looks kind of like a vase there. Like you need to select those circles in order, either from top to bottom or bottom to top. You can't kind of pick in between and then expect it to figure out which is the
well, and that's pretty normal for a Loft tool.
Yeah.
Most of them want you to pick in the order you want a Loft. All right, so we're running out of time today. I had other little bits and pieces in here, but I pretty much brought up most of this as we were going through. Just remember your magic tab key. Remember that you can pick points off the screen that are on other edges. Don't forget about your lasso tool. We talked a little bit about the levels. Don't forget about you can use your levels, and the levels can work within your nested groups if you needed to. We talked about the imagery and the levels. And then what else? The groups. Don't forget about your solar analysis. We talked a little bit about the materials. They're all available to us. And the last thing, just finishing up, is the resources. So there's a nice learning page on FormIt's website. If you go up to YouTube and type in FormIt, you'll probably run across the channel for FormIt. I think there should have been a 5 in here recently, but now we're on 6, so just a heads up on that. So I just want to throw this out here too, that all of this stuff gets recorded and gets thrown out there. So
your webinar will be posted shortly, probably early next week. We also just finished a series of videos called FormIt Snippets. They're little 2-minute segments, 18 2-minute segments of how to get started with FormIt. And it just covers the real basic tools, covers groups that Jarod went over today, and kind of just an introduction to the app. We'll be doing some more of those, but just learn FormIt in 2-minute chunks. Yeah, that's the idea.
Which is great.
Somebody asked if your slides are available. These are your RTC slides, so it's kind of up to you how you want to share them.
I can post it on my website.
Cool.
So I'll put it in a PDF so you guys can grab it.
Awesome. And when we post your webinar, we will post a link to your website where you've got that.
Sure.
Very good.
Yeah, I can put that up this afternoon.
Yeah.
I was going to break out my handout into some chunks in the next month or so and just kind of lay out. So I was going to get the stuff out there anyway, so everybody can kind of see what's going on.
Yeah, there were actually a couple of questions asking for your slides. So good content.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Everybody had a blast at RTC. And last class of the day, I thought there would be, probably get 5 people, but it was standing room only, which was awesome. So I requested a larger classroom next year.
Next year. Yeah. So I think that's about it. And Tom, if I remember right, you wanted to follow up with some questions also?
Yeah, well, this is Tom. I had just two announcements, actually. So one is the next FormIt Friday webinar will be in 2 weeks on the 18th, and that will be with Tony Caputo, who is another of Array Architects, and he was another RTC presenter. So he'll be doing a similar thing to Jarod, presenting his work. And then just this week, we also launched our FormIt 360 Pro subscription offering worldwide. So I don't know how many people are on the phone from outside the U.S., but we'll be announcing this today too. But if you were outside the U.S. and not able to access the Pro subscription through our online store, you are able to do that now, which is great news. So yeah, thank you, Jarod. That was really great, and we'll see everybody in 2 weeks for the next episode.